Number 4 was when I was living by myself. So this was the first time that I was by myself when I had a seizure. And all I remember is waking up on my laundry floor, and I was sitting staring at the wall for a really long time, not aware of why I was there or what I was staring at or that was strange. And I just knew something was off. But it took so long to realize what had happened.
Welcome to Trujectory, the podcast committed to helping you align with who you really are, your true self. The one who is so comfortable with their uniqueness, so in love with life, and so effortlessly able to manifest everything they always dreamt of. I want this podcast to be a resource to help you jump into the driver's seat rather than continuing as a passenger in your own story. Let's understand why we choose to hold ourselves back so we can shed the lies that we've programmed into our minds. We can heal the root causes and step into the epic human that we know we can be. If you're ready to start aligning with your trajectory, let's do it.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. This is the Trujectory podcast. We're almost at the end of season 1, so I really didn't want to let season 1 end before I spoke about my greatest teacher so far in my life. And I'm sure there will be other ones that come into my reality later on in life, but so far my greatest teacher has been the seizures that I had. And yeah, they came out of the blue. So my goal with this episode, as with all episodes, is to give you some valuable takeaways, some things that you can sort of maybe implement in your own life, some perspective. And it's always to show how we're all similar. No matter what our experiences are, we all go through the same shit, right? So you're not alone. And I really want to emphasize in this episode the power and the beauty that comes after breakdowns. When you are broken to the point where you think you can't be broken anymore, that is when you really start to find yourself. And for me, that's when I started to really align with my true self, which is why I'm so passionate about this work for other people. I want other people to get to that point without necessarily having to go through something so intense and horrific. At the time it was anyway. So yeah, we all have our big teachers that come in, big challenges that shape us and change us, and we come out the other end a completely different person. You could look at them as initiations or upgrading, up-leveling, whatever it is, you're being chiseled and you're dropping parts of yourself that no longer serve you. So it's a really hard one to do, but it's when you sort of learn more about these things and you hear more about other people's experiences of how much they've gained and how much beauty has come out of something that was so horrible at the time, it really helps to keep your mindset focused on what you're gaining during these hard times, rather than falling into victim mode and despair and feeling like you're never going to get out of that hole. You definitely will. It's there serving you for a purpose. And this is my story about my greatest teacher, the one that stripped me bare and showed me all kinds of sides to myself that I didn't even know existed. And at the end, I'm going to go through all of the incredible new things that I have gained from it, all of the ways that I live now that I wouldn't have even considered doing, living, performing, achieving if I hadn't been through this rough time. So technically, the doctors would want to say that I am epileptic, that I have epilepsy. That is because they have to diagnose it as epilepsy if you have 3 seizures within a 24-hour period. And it just so happens that whenever I have seizures, they happen in 3s. And they usually always happen within a 24-hour period. So I have had 4 big experiences. And each of them have had 3 rounds. So it's been about 12 seizures in total. So the first one, I was at a friend's house. I was running around, and this is like such a perfect screenshot of how I used to live. And then later on, we'll get to how I live now and how much it's shifted. On this day that I had my first seizure, I was running around like crazy. I had a friend's surprise birthday party brunch thingy to get to. I was running around picking out presents. I was getting flowers. I was organizing things for work. I was on the phone. I was driving around like just 1,000 miles a minute, running straight from that back home to change. I can't even remember. I was doing many, many things in that day. It was a bit of a blur, but because I didn't realize at the time, but my consciousness was already sort of starting to step out of it a bit. And then I jumped in the car again and I drove to the outskirts of Sydney. So this was like a 45 minute drive, almost an hour drive. When I look back now, I get chills and I think about how protected I was, that nothing happened to me while I was on that drive, because that would have been a very different situation. Luckily, I don't really believe in luck. It was my team, my guides supporting me and making sure I was safe. I got to my friend's house and all I remember was they were setting up food. I was sitting on the couch. I was really excited to eat because I hadn't eaten for about 5-6 hours and I was running around like crazy and I was starving. That obviously didn't help either. And the next thing I remember is I woke up in the hospital and it had been something like 8 hours or something, or 6 hours, some crazy amount of time that I just completely lost. And when I woke up, my partner at the time was there and he was so happy to see that I was okay. And I was like, what's going on? Why am I here? Like, what? And he explained to me what happened. And I was sort of like, okay, that's strange. All right. Anyway, we sort of made peace with it and we figured that wouldn't happen again. So after the doctors deemed that I was safe to go back home, he drove me home. And then that night, I had another seizure while I was sleeping. So this one, I woke up. I didn't wake up. I started seizing and I fell out of bed, smashed my jaw on the right side down here, smashed it on my bedside table, and there was like a dint in the bone here for months. It must have been a really hard hit. There was bruising and everything. And I'd fallen onto the floor and he was able to call the ambulance and they came over, and again, I woke up and I was in hospital again. So now it's twice within 24 hours that I've woken up in hospital going, what the fuck is happening? This is not normal. Okay. So at that point, my family came up from Canberra and I had a beautiful support system and I had to stay in hospital. They had to monitor me for, I think, 2 days or maybe an extra 24 hours, maybe 48 hours, but it was at least 2 nights in hospital that I slept there. And so, that was the first one. And I found out later that I had peed my pants. And that's a big thing that happens when you have a seizure. You lose control of all of your bodily functions. So unfortunately for my beautiful friend whose house I was at when we were having this gathering the first time it happened, she had a brand new couch and I left my mark on it. So I'm forever very sorry about that. She's such a beautiful soul and was very forgiving and, don't worry about it. I offered to pay for it. She wouldn't even let me pay for it. And so I was very grateful to be in really nurturing hands for that situation. So anyway, it was overnight. Then I wasn't able to drive anymore. I'm not able to be, potentially at risk for myself or for anyone else on the road. And it was a 6-month period where I'm not allowed to drive. And I've been placed on meds. And this is where things started to go really south. These meds, it's really hard to explain. If you've been on them, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. They stripped my personality. They made me feel like I was in here somewhere. I was in my body. I was in my mind, but I wasn't able to project the things that I wanted to. I was projecting anger, rage, and depression and all these sorts of things. Meanwhile, deep inside my conscious somewhere, I was there going, this isn't me. Why am I feeling this? Why am I saying these things? Why is this happening? And it just completely made me feel this disconnect with myself, which was very scary, very confusing. And I wanted to get off these meds. And I didn't want to feel, I'm not a big fan of pharmaceutical meds in the first place. I'm sure they have their purpose for certain ailments and stuff, but I am a big believer in holistic healing and more Eastern remedies. And so I was placed on these meds without a choice. It was while I was unconscious. And now the thing was, if I stopped taking the meds, that actually triggered a seizure. And trust me, I tried a few times to stop taking these meds. I was so angry. I was so outside of who my personality was or who I thought it was that I tried to stop. I tried to wean off them. And every time I did, I would have what they call an aura. And an aura is a precursor to a seizure. It's when you know a seizure is about to occur. my whole body would turn into full sweat. I would lose consciousness a little bit. I'd get really dizzy. I would have ringing in my ears and I wouldn't be able to hear anything. My vision would get blurry, and I'd feel like I need to purge, like I need to throw up. And a few times I did, and it was usually just water sort of that would come up. And so then I was really aware of the fact that I was stuck on these meds. And everyone I spoke to, of course, you know, they're all doctors. They all have to protect their backs as well. And so they would all say, no, you have to stay on these. You don't have a choice. This is what you need to be on. We can maybe look at weaning you off in about a year or so, but you have to be seizure free for over a year for us to even consider that. So I'm going, okay, great. So now I have to try and make peace with a whole new lifestyle, a whole new way of living. And overnight I'd gone from being independent, being able to drive myself around, being able to do whatever I want, saying the things that I'm trying to say and thinking the things I'm trying to think, to then suddenly I can't drive, I can't take myself anywhere anymore. I'm dependent on others. I don't trust myself around people really, because I don't know what's going to come out of me. Like, it's like a heightened version of everything. If you have a little bit of rage, as a level-headed normal person, you can control that a little bit, or you can, you know, adjust it. You can step outside of a situation if you need to, just to calm down. You can do many things to sort of rectify that, or at least, you know, subdue it a little bit. But in this case, it was like everything was heightened. If I had rage, it would just come out of me. I would scream at people. I would say horrible things. And then deep down, here I am, real Sarah, going, what the fuck is happening? Why would you say that? Like, you know, this person's just doing their best. Don't attack them. And so then that would lead to beating myself up and being really hard on myself. Just remembering all of this. It's a lot. Anyway, so that was the state I was in for a long time. But on a positive, I hadn't had a seizure for almost a year. The first one I had was in May of 2020. And I got to March of 2021 without having another one. And I thought, I'm good. I'm going to be okay. I'm going to get off these meds. I'm going to be able to start culling off them within the next couple of months. Everything's looking good. Lesson after lesson after lesson. So in March, I was driving back from Canberra, not me driving, my boss, my co-worker, legendary person who was very aware of the whole situation and very understanding of my erratic moods, was driving. And I had another seizure in the car on the way back. Again, very gratefully, I was in a situation, I mean, this was a 3-hour drive. If I started having a seizure midway between Sydney and Canberra, that would have been horrible. I wouldn't have been able to get any attention, any help quickly. So, sorry, I just need to take a sip of water. I had a feeling this would happen. Although I've done so much work around this, it was such a huge, heavy 3 years. And I'm still just coming out of it, you know. So this second seizure was, luckily, again, I don't believe in luck, but you know what I mean. I was half an hour away from a hospital in Sydney when I started seizing. And in this one, my head got stuck in between the door of the car and the seat. And so if you can imagine full body bang, 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 seizing, I ended up with a huge black eye this time. So that was fun. Waking up again. I'm not aware of it when this is happening, right? So that is one blessing. I feel for the people around me who have to witness it, and it scares the crap out of them because I can't breathe and my face goes blue. And, you know, I can only imagine myself in that situation. I'd be going, oh my gosh, like, how can I help this person? I can't. I just need to get them to a hospital. So, my mate Dave, I remember him telling me, he basically he was just about to come into this busy intersection, and he basically just put his hazard lights on and just powered through the intersection, like obviously making sure we were safe. But everyone sort of paused and held back, and he was sort of like creating his own ambulance type situation and just raced me to the hospital. And luckily I got there and they looked after me and they got me back, they got me stable again. But again, I've been pumped full of these drugs. Every time I go to have a hospital visit, the meds that I'm already on that I'm really struggling to be on, I get them pumped in intravenously while I'm in hospital. So it's like this amplified version of it, and that lasts, it takes about a week or so for that to wear off. It's so strong. So that was the second one. That was fun. And then the third one was when it was 2 months later. So in May of 2021. And I was in bed. I was having a nap. And this was the other thing that these meds did. I would wake up late. I'm an early bird, right? So I would be waking up at like 9, which is insane for me. All my life I've been an early bird. 5, 6 a.m. is just normal. I was waking up at about 9. I would have to have a nap between 2 to 3 hours every single day. And then I'd be in bed by 7:30 or 8. There was so much sleep happening. It literally felt like all of the sleep deprivation that I had gone through my entire life was demanding repayment. It was like, no, you got to sleep more. You got to sleep more. So I just felt I felt like a cripple. I felt useless. I felt unable to accomplish anything because anything I started, I would lose my energy. I would drop. I would be weak. I could barely hold a camera. I remember breaking down on a shoot one day because I was just about to step out and do this shoot with our clients, and my arms were shaking. I was so skinny. I was 56 kilos and I'm 6'1". That's a really, really skinny person. I wasn't used to that. So I had no meat on me, no weight, no strength, no muscle. And I couldn't even hold a camera. So this was the sort of state that I got to. I went from running around doing this. Yeah, I'm in charge of all the shoots. Yeah, do this one. I'll do all 5 shots. Don't worry, leave it to me. Bam, bam, bam. To, holy shit, I have to go home and sleep. I can't even hold this tiny little DSLR camera that probably weighs like 5 kilos. So anyway, so the third one was when I was asleep, having one of my naps. And again, I just woke up to ambulance in my room, 2 women, and they had all their gear and they were, trying to talk to me and trying to calm me down. And I was just so confused. And this is where the post-ictal state comes into it. This is very interesting stuff. When it comes to epilepsy, there's still so many questions. There are so many types of epilepsy, so many types of seizures. And I think it's only recently in the last 2 or 3 years that they've created the role of an epileptologist, a specialist who's really focusing in on trying to get some answers around what sort of activity is happening in the brain when these things happen, and if we can figure it out, if there's any correlation. So I woke up and I was in the post-ictal state. So after you have a seizure, you're in this state, and it goes one of 2 ways, depending on who you are, depending on what sort of seizure you have, whatever it is. And you either come out, and I did the first 2 times, you come out of your state in this beautiful love and light and everything is fantastic. And, I'm in hospital. That's cool. What's going on? Oh, who cares? I feel so good. So that's what I was like the first 2 times I woke up in hospital. This time when I woke up in my bed and there were 2 ambulances standing over me trying to get me to go to hospital, I went the other way. And the other way is just like, I can remember it so vividly right now, and it just baffles me. You just become an asshole. Like, you literally just become such a fucking asshole. I was so rude to these women. Luckily, they knew what was going on and they're used to this, right? So they knew that I was in this post-ictal state. But I was literally like swearing at them, going, get the fuck out of my house. What are you doing here? Don't even talk. Don't look at me. Don't even look at me. Don't talk to me. Get out of here. I finally got the strength to get out of bed, sort of moved past them, went into the bathroom, slammed the door, and I was yelling at them, you're not taking me anywhere. Like I was some sort of crazy, I don't know, like prisoner. And And it took about 4 hours to come out of that. And I'm really luckily, I was very grateful that later on when I was in hospital that night, they did eventually get me to the hospital, by the way, with the help of my partner at the time, who was able to calm me down. When I saw them later, they sort of came to check in on me before they went off for a next run. And I was back in my normal state then. So I was able to say, I'm so sorry. I don't know what that was. And they were just laughing. They were like, no, this is fine. That's so totally normal. So that's really fascinating. So just know that if you ever find someone who's had a seizure, if you ever see one happening, witness one in public, whatever it is, because they can come at any time, just be aware that they could come out of that state being really aggressive, and they don't mean to. They really don't mean to. So just be kind to them. Let them yell, let them do their thing, and then they'll eventually come to. So yeah, so that was number 3. And then number 4 was when I was living by myself. So this was the first time that I was by myself when I had a seizure. And all I remember is waking up on my laundry floor, and I was sitting staring at the wall for a really long time, not aware of why I was there or what I was staring at or that was strange. It probably took me about 20 minutes of staring. And then I looked down and my foot had kicked through and smashed one of my cat's litter trays. So there was litter and there was cat poop everywhere. Well, not everywhere because I'm pretty much a clean freak, but there was a little bit. And I just knew something was off. But it took so long to realize what had happened. And so I just sat there for a really long time. And there was obviously a part of me that knew I needed to call out for help. And I don't even remember doing this, but I texted my friend and said, it's happened again. And he knew exactly what that meant. And luckily he knew where the spare key was for my house, for my apartment. So he was able to come over. And then, so after I, looked at the litter situation and I realized something was off, I think I went into another seizure, because then all I remember is about an hour or so later, maybe half an hour, I don't know, he was there and he was sort of, helping me get it onto the couch and saying, come on, mate, let's go over here. It's all good. And it was just such a confusing one. Like, it was just really weird. And I had a big bruise on my head. So I'd obviously hit something. I still to this day don't know what, in the position that the bruise was in. It was almost like a squiggly line bruise. I'm like, that makes sense, right? If your body's moving continuously, but I don't know what I could have hit. Because I was in a sitting position, which was, lucky I wasn't straight on my face on the tiled floor that I was on. So anyway, so that was the 4th one. And eventually, even though I really didn't want to, and I tried to fight it for a long time, I wasn't coming out. I kept going in and out of these mild seizures. They weren't like full body, but I wasn't there. I really wasn't there. And I actually got my friend to film some of it for me, because I asked him in advance. I asked him, if I ever do have another seizure again, can you film some of it for me? Because I want to see what I'm like. It's so confusing to come out of this situation and be told, you're this, you're that, this is what you do, this is what you say, this is what it looks like. And I was like, I kind of just want to see. So he remembered that and he filmed a little bit of it. And when I looked back later, it was like, I'm just not there. It's like I'm half drunk. I'm slurring my words. I'm speaking all sorts of tongues. I'm trying to move my body in weird ways. And it's like a yoga instructor who's drunk. I don't know. It's very interesting. I just find it so fascinating, the things that can happen in your mind that we just don't understand. And mine is temporal lobe epilepsy. So I have a lot of memory issues associated with this. So that's where your memory is stored. So there's definitely a lot of blackouts, a lot of big blank moments. And so anyway, so those were the 4 big experiences and 3 rounds with each one. And I did end up in hospital on that final round as well. And I stayed in there for 2 days, I believe. But I'm really, really proud to say that was July. That was July last year, which was July 2022. It's now December 2023. And I've been seizure free for over a year. God, it still gets me. Oh, I'm so grateful. But this is where all of the beautiful, beautiful lessons have come in, and I've basically been forced, which is what I needed because I was a stubborn little one, and I didn't want to look after myself. I never put myself first. I was always doing everything for everyone else. And going into these modes where I couldn't hold a camera, I could barely work, I could barely stay awake for longer than a couple of hours, I could barely eat, like everything was just stripped. So now I have so many gifts from this. I have a beautiful, healthy diet. I eat so well. And I eat all of those, and I cook from home. So it's all my own cooking, which is amazing in itself. I used to order Uber Eats all the freaking time. So I'm really proud of that. I exercise not every day because I don't want to burn myself out, but at least between 4 to 5 times a week. And I mean, 2 days ago, I went for a ride that was a 2-hour ride up this mountain. That to me is huge. That's such a huge accomplishment. Having the energy to do that. And I exercise because I never want to feel that weak again, because that was really scary. Thanks for sticking with me, guys. So, what else have I learned? I get amazing sleep. I make sure that there's never a part of my life again that is demanding repayment on lost sleep. I always get anywhere from 8 to 10, sometimes even 11 hours at night. I have huge, solid, amazing sleeps. And part of that is to have a really good routine at the end of the night. So I'm making sure that I eat early, so I have a big gap between my last meal and going to bed, so I have time to digest. I read at night, so I'm calming my mind. I'm not watching TV and being stimulated and, just amplifying my energy. I'm calming my energy. I light incense. I light candles. I journal. I never used to be able to journal. I didn't have the patience. And patience, that's a huge one that's come out of this as well. I now have the patience to see the importance of doing all of these self-care practices and the ripple effect that they have throughout the other areas of my life. Like working out is great. In my mind, I started because I wanted to feel strong again. I didn't want to feel weak anymore. And that was what it was mainly about. But pretty soon I learned that within a gym session, there'll be challenges. And each time you have the choice to either slack off a little bit or really rise to the challenge, really push yourself. And then the next session to go past that barrier and keep surpassing all of your own wins, your achievements. Keep demanding better, bigger. And again, I say that in a kind, loving way to myself. It's not, if you don't do this, I'm going to hate on you. I've learned that my body is in charge. And that is another beautiful lesson that I learned. It will tell me if I really need to calm down a little bit. And it is very lucky that I have, those auras prior to having seizures. So if I ever feel even a slight, I've only had about 5 or 6 of those feelings since my last seizures. And every time I have those, it's like a reminder to just slow it down again. You're getting a bit too carried away again. You're getting a bit too fast. You're demanding a bit too much of yourself. And even though there's a part of me that's always like, no, I can do more. The other part is louder now going, no, darling, calm down. We don't need you back in hospital. You have got this. You can just do it a little bit slower. And the amount of clarity I gain around what I'm doing, where I'm going, what I'm learning when I do things slower is so powerful. I've learned presence. I've learned how to be in the present moment, because for so long, for some people 3 years might sound like a really short time. For me, it felt like forever. Having that amount of time where you're barely able to do anything that you want to do. I would spend hours laying on the floor in my bedroom in various houses. I had to keep moving houses as well, so that was draining in itself. I think I moved 5 times in 14 months, so that was a whole other story. But the lack of energy, like I would literally lay on my bedroom floor staring out at the sun for hours and hours and hours, just dreaming about being out there and looking at how beautiful it is and all that light outside. And meanwhile, I'm stuck in this, dark room. And it was dark, the room itself, but it was me who was just feeling so dark inside. The meds were making me so miserable and depressed. And I forgot to say that I did eventually wean myself off those meds I think it was about 8 months ago. So I'm so, so grateful. I can see the difference. I could see it instantly when I started to cull them. I did it very, very slowly. I was trying to be very safe and secure. And I would cut off like a quarter of a pill, and then I would do that for a week, and then I would cut off another quarter. And I was taking 2 different pills of 2 different kinds. So 4 pills a day, morning and night. And so I had to cull all of them down bit by bit, and I did it. And I finally felt like I had control over my faculties again. I was able to function the way I wanted to. I was able to say the things that I meant to say rather than having this rage or depression or weakness like overwhelming me and making me do and say and feel things that just didn't feel like me. So patience has been a huge gain from that. I was able, without even trying, to cull all of the people in my world that were not serving me. It was very quick and easy to do that because they were the ones that didn't show any support. They didn't help in any way. They didn't really want to check in on how I was doing. And I realized that a lot of those friendships was more party related. It was like, and that's fine. They were friendships for that season of my life. When we wanted to party together, we had a great time. It was fantastic. Lots of hilarious, fun memories from those days. But I had instantly stepped into the next phase of my life, which was self-care. And eventually when I got my head around that, it's where I'm at now, which is moving towards the goals that I've always had. I finally have that self-trust and that consistency and the confidence and the power in myself to back myself enough to move towards the things I want, this podcast being one of them. And those friendships from that season don't fit into this new season because a lot of those friendships, I resonated with them because I was at a lower level, and we all were at that level where we didn't care about our bodies, where we didn't want to know about responsibility and the ramifications of our actions. We just wanted to have fun and just live it up. So I'm proud to say I did that. I've had that time, but I'm done with that. I don't drink alcohol anymore. That's another amazing gift from this whole experience. I find when I do, it does start to bring on those feelings of an aura, which is the precursor to a seizure. This Christmas, I'm planning on having maybe 1 or 2 glasses of Moscato. Rebel over here. But we'll see how I go. I'll have half a glass first and judge it, see how I feel. And yeah, letting my body lead has been the biggest gift. It's something I never did, and I never realized I wasn't doing. My body was screaming out to me so many times in so many ways for so many reasons, and I would just say, shut up, I'm doing this thing. I'm going to do 5 more of these before the day's done. Then I'm going to go and do this. Then I'm going to... It's just incredible how disconnected I was to myself. So now on the other end, I literally, even though obviously there's still emotion, as you saw, there's still emotion that comes up because it was such a huge shift and it happened so quickly and I was in such a dark place for so long, feeling like I would never get out of it. But when I look back, I truly look back with such fond eyes. I am so grateful because I know I needed all of those things to happen to allow me to really respect myself and put myself first. And that's why I have so much passion talking about self-development, self-care, all of these things. And there's so many people that are waking up at this time as well that are talking about the same things. And I know that it can sound a little bit saturated. It can sort of get a little bit, this is just everyone's talking about self-care, self-love. What is that crap? It's one of those things, if you're not ready to hear about it, it won't resonate with you. But when you are at that point where you're ready to put yourself first and you're ready to see what you're capable of, you're ready to blow your own mind at your own power and will and strength, that's when it will all start to make sense. So don't push it, right? Like, let it come to you. But it's incredible the way the universe works, and it will give you the lessons that you need right when you need them, usually when you're at breaking point. So hopefully you can avoid getting to that point. If you see any signs that you're starting to go downhill a little bit, that you're starting to you're really not prioritizing your own health, then it might be worth taking a bit of a step back. And that might look like a day or a week or a month of literally just observing your life, trying to be the observer within your own mind. Rather than just being on autopilot and doing all of these habitual actions, start questioning when you do things. Does this serve me? Why am I doing this thing? Do I want to be doing this thing? Because your true self, the true essence of you, which is what I'm always harping on about, is the part of you that knows exactly what it wants. But we become so disconnected from that part, that true soul essence that came in here with a mission, with a plan, and that thing starts to identify itself. It starts to show you through hints that are all aligned to passion. So when you start feeling really passionate about something, or something lights you up, makes you feel alive, makes you feel like, oh my gosh, I could do anything, it makes you feel limitless, those are the things that you should be heading towards. But initially, because we've all put ourselves, a lot of us anyway, I can't say all, but most of us have put ourselves in these situations where we're just doing a job because we need money. We're going to these social events because we feel like we have to maintain certain friendships, or we have to do the right thing. We're doing things for other people, for societal pressures, for cultural reasons, for all of these external things that might not actually serve you. So really start looking at, what do I want? It's as simple as that. And when you start to do the things you want, you'll find that your life starts to just fit, mold, and blend perfectly around that thing. Obviously, you are going to shed. You're going to shed layers of beliefs that you have held for a very long time that need to be reevaluated. You're going to shed people, relationships, friendships, all sorts of things that don't serve the new version of you who's actually honoring what she or he wants. And that's a beautiful part of the process. I can tell you firsthand, I've lost a lot of people from my old version of myself to who I am now, and I don't regret a thing. I'm so grateful, because I can't even imagine those people fitting in with me anymore. I can't even imagine the conversations we would have. They're not at all interesting to me. I have completely different interests now, different beliefs, different values, everything. So anyway, just a reminder that all of the biggest challenges do become your greatest teachers. And at the end of the day, I am so, so grateful for all of these seizures. And I'm so grateful for being seizure free for over a year now. It's almost a year and a half. So yeah, it's what happens when you do the work. You really can change your entire reality. So I hope you've gained something from this episode. Thanks for sticking with me through the tears and the memories and all of the just recalling it. I think it's so important sometimes to look back and really take stock and do a bit of a review and go, wow, yeah, this is where I'm at now. Shit. But anyways, love you guys. Stay you, stay true. Mwah.